I want to take this opportunity to say welcome and to just give some brief information about this. This isn't just a one-time thing. We meet monthly. This work group meets, it's the Juvenile Justice Work Group. It meets the third Thursday of every month at 3 o'clock. You all have the link now. If you register one time, you can use that same link to come to future meetings. And we do our best to try to get agendas out before the meeting. And one of the things that we often do is uplift the work that's being done. So before we end today, if you have something that you want to report out that your organization is doing or planning to do, please make sure that you let us know. And we'll let you know when that time of the meeting occurs. There are 3 other work group meetings, and if you receive the email for this, you will be able to see the information for those work groups, as well as the education, child welfare, and health and wellness work group. As you all know, a lot of this work intersects and overlaps. And so, we do our best to get out some thorough notes that happen in the individual meetings, because we know you all many people cannot attend all the meetings. And so just to stay abreast of what's happening. And as you saw, we started the recording. And so these sessions are typically recorded. So we have that to share with people that were not able to attend the meeting. So again, thank you for being here. And Sarah, I believe you have the rest of the agenda, and we'll do the introductions of our guests. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you again to all of you for joining us today. I'm really excited to see everyone here, and I'm especially excited to learn from our guests. So I'm not going to say a lot other than just that, as Kathy was saying, Schumann Detention Center was closed in September, and there are conversations happening across the county about what's going to come after that. And we thought via this work group, we've been working together for a long time, and via other colleagues throughout the city and county, that this was an opportunity to ensure that we can share some perspectives from young people who have spent time at Schumann, so that we are ensuring their voices are centered in this process, and also an opportunity to learn from people in other places about what's worked there. And I was really fortunate to get connected with Dr. Sabina Vaught, who's here today with us. She's a professor in the School of Education at Pitt. And she does a lot of work, I think, around the freedom schools and freedom education models. And she connected us with Margaret Goldman, who's one of our guests from LA today. And Margaret is a teacher at the Free LA school that they formed out there when they closed their detention facility. And so I am hoping, I know that they can explain much better than I could ever begin to what they do and introduce themselves a little bit. So I thought I would pass it off to Margaret first. And we also, I know, have Sir Bailey, another teacher at the Free LA school. And there's so many people on my screen. I think there are a few other folks.
I'm gonna pin them. Hold on.
Yeah, that would be great. And then I'm hoping, if you all don't mind, if you don't mind introducing yourselves and just sharing a little bit about so we can understand what the Free LA school is, what kind of model you're operating under and how it works. And then we thought we would, you don't have to talk for too long. We'll have some dialogue and we can ask some questions. When a few of us met with Margaret and Sir the other day, and the thing I took away from that meeting that I was so excited about is really what they shared, the philosophy of the Free LA school, which doesn't have police at the school and operates from a transformative justice model. And they shared that their philosophy is building institutions of support to make youth incarceration obsolete. And so I really want to make youth incarceration obsolete here in Allegheny County, and excited to learn more about how we can do that. So thank you for joining us. I'd love to turn it over to Margaret now, if you want to start, and Sir and our other guests.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. I guess I'll just introduce myself a little bit and then pass it off to other folks here. Also, Anthony Robles is on and part of YJC also. If you want to pin him, and I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, who was it?
Anthony Robles.
Okay, got it.
So my name is Margaret. I'm a graduate student at UCI. I've been doing a project here at Free LA, which is connected to YJC. And then recently, or as of last year, was asked to also teach. So I'm teaching English here. And I'm going to keep my intro brief and just pass it over to folks that are with me that have been in the space for a while, and then I can always circle back if to add anything. So I'll pass it to Jared, who's sitting next to me.
Hey y'all, what's good? My name's Jared. I go by J-Bo. I'm a Freedom Arts coordinator. So my job is basically to bridge arts and organizing social justice. And I'm also like 24 years old, and I'm on the board as well. And I've been doing organizing. I've been a youth organizer and working also with the school for like 5 years now.
I think they'll talk later, but if do y'all want to introduce yourselves now or no? We have some students here.
Yeah, I'm a student. I've been going here like 2 months, and I really like the program.
What's your name?
My name Demetrius.
My name's Andy Durantes, and I'm currently a student at Free LA, and I like the school. They really help you, they engage with you, try to help you get your credits, and I really like the school.
Thank you so much. They'll share more later after they'll share more later. But then I'll pass it over to Sir or Anthony.
Which one, Ms. Goldman, Sir or Anthony?
Either one.
Bless up. My name is Sir Bailey. I put in there Sir Love One because I love hip hop that much, and that's my name on the mic. With that being said, that is the incredible Mr. Tenacity from High School of Recording Arts Community Creatives. I'm humanities facilitator. And please excuse the shades. My contacts have been disturbing my eyes, and these are the only glasses that I have where I can see you. Without them, my computer is a blur. And I will pass it. Scott, did you want to say anything? I came into Free LA through HSRA, High School of the Recording Arts, 20 years in Minnesota, teaching liberatory style with hip hop. Big up to David T.C. Ellis and Tony Simmons and the rest of the crew out there. It's definitely a liberatory space, a freedom school, in my opinion. That school was a part of Youth Build Charter Schools of California, which is national. We didn't last as a school. We merged in with Free LA, and that's what brought Scott and myself to the Chuco's space as a part of the Free LA team.
Yeah, I'm Scott Martin. I'm the music coordinator up here at Free LA, and I just love this space for everything that it offers as young people and all the alternative learning that we do up here. It's just an incredible place to be. So I guess I'll go ahead and pass it to Anthony.
Just on time, my internet went out, and I just got back in right now. But yeah, hey, this is Anthony Robles. I'm with the Youth Justice Coalition. I work on our campaign and organizing work, and basically, being part of the movement here in Los Angeles County to end youth incarceration once and for all, and invest those resources instead of punishing young people and facilitating these systems that just kind of punish and keep us in a loop of poverty, instead of distributing those resources into programs like our own and others that are like ours here in the county that work with young people to actually teach them about and how to use like transformative justice, how to get their diplomas, helping them find the employment, stuff like that, and deal with the real issues that do happen on the streets with young people, or these carceral systems that only see young people and young people of color as criminals. And that's already the mindset off the bat, and instead, like, we can take care of ourselves, and just we're trying to just redistribute the resources that are being used to punish young people here in LA County. It's $1 billion industry. Probation, the youth probation department gets over $500 million. So we're trying to end that and redistribute those resources into a youth development department, and create more free LAs and YJCs in LA County.
Thank you so much. I think also Lupita is here, is that right?
I'm not positive if she's had a chance to make it down, but Gloria, oh, sorry, Lupita is here, and also Gloria Gonzalez is here as well. I'm part of Youth Justice Coalition. Sorry, Lupita.
I can't hear Lupita. Can you all? Looks like she's talking, but.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Hello, my name is Lupita. Yeah, now everybody's calling me. I am the, I'm sorry, Free LA Youth Coordinator at the Youth Justice Coalition. I'm an alumni. I graduated the class of 2018. I've been with the Youth Justice Coalition as a student, and then after as a student, I wore many caps. I was a youth organizer. From a youth organizer, I became a youth organizer coordinator, and then now I am where I am. So what I do is I'm the liaison person between the organizing and the high school. So making sure that the high school has the information that the organizing team does, and also peer mentorship for the young people at Chucos. I think what very brought me to this space is the 5% campaign, where you redirect 5% from law enforcement's budget, because we know that they take 54% of the city's budget, where you reallocate or remove those dollars to youth centers, youth jobs, peace builders, bus passes. And that's the campaign that just drew me in.
And then Gloria is here also.
Yeah, I can go next. Hey everyone, Gloria Gonzalez, she, her, with the Youth Justice Coalition, Youth Development Coordinator, and echoing what Lupita named, playing a lot of roles at the YJC, but really excited to be on this call with you all and just share about where we're at in terms of the youth justice world here, but also how we got our space, and share more about the school. And yeah, and also one of the biggest things that Anthony and myself are holding, and other young people here too, we're working to really reimagine what it looks like to move young people out of probation and into a Department of Youth Development. So moving them out of probation's jurisdiction and into a Department of Youth Development's jurisdiction. And so, if that's also helpful, but excited to be on this call with you all.
So, I guess to Sarah and Beth and anyone else, would it, is there a particular order of like topic or question that you'd like to go, or for us to just speak generally about the model and the process first, and then go from there? Either one.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, or whatever makes the most sense to you all. We are just so eager to, I think we all have so many questions. So, but yes, that would be really helpful.
Okay. So would you like to speak about anything first, or I think we talked about starting with where we're at now in terms of what we're doing at Free LA. And so maybe if Lupita wants to share a little bit about like the model or the vision, and then Sarah and I could talk about what that has looked like for us as teachers. And anyone else.
Awesome.
Lupita, Anthony, or Gloria, anybody.
Okay, can you all hear me? Yes, okay. So back when the Youth Justice Coalition started in 2004, there were a lot of young people that were being expelled, pushed out of schools, right? And so when they were coming to this space, or when they were meeting up together, the folks together decided like, hey, why don't we figure out how to create a school, right? Like, we're being pushed out of these different schools, and right, like, we don't feel safe. There's different school police that's targeting us. We don't have bus passes. We don't have funds to purchase them. And then, you know, like graffiti. So a lot of like artists were in the space too. People that were from hoods as well, right? Like from different neighborhoods or different hoods, if you understand what I'm saying. And so all these people, all these young people coming together, and different adults too, right? Saying like, okay, well, what is the vision then, right? Like, if you all can't be in this school or in these schools, how can we support you all? And so that's how Free LA, the thought of it kind of began, and really wanting to support young people in a way that it wasn't tied to the carceral state, right? When we think about how school police has really transformed and taken over, not transformed, or transformed in a negative way, how school operates, or even how we think about safety, or when we think about accountability or punishment, right? It's become very punitive because it's tied to law enforcement and these systems of oppression. Wanting to make a school that did not replicate any of those things, right? Where graffiti and art and different forms of art would be uplifted and would be able to be done in the space, right? So when we used to be on Redondo and West, which is borderline South Central, borderline Inglewood, there was a lot of murals in the space, right? Like different sacred murals, really looking at Aztec Mayan warriors, right? And looking at different ways in which different messages, right, that people could think of to create like, what is the what are we trying to rewrite, like rewriting history, right? So there was a huge pencil with a banner, and in the back there was a graph lab, right, where anyone in the city, any students, right, could come in and do art, and so, and not be criminalized for or targeted. So and then we thought about like, well, I'll say like the people before me, right, really wanting to shout out, like, I've been at the YJC for 10 years. I'm also an alum, but there were many young people that fought a lot of these things, or were able to make these things happen. And some of them have also passed away, right? So bringing them into this space and into this call as well. But so through those visions, right, Free LA came to be. And Free LA is an acronym for Fighting for the Revolution to Empower and Educate Los Angeles, where what safety looks like is having peace builders. And a peace builder is someone that's from the neighborhood, someone that's system impacted, or someone that's, again, like knows the community, knows the neighborhood, knows the people, knows the lingo, and is able to support young people through a mentor or peace builder lens instead of having like specific security and a weapon or a badge. So I'll stop there and then I'll hand it to folks. I can go on forever, right? But yeah, I'll hand it to Margaret or Sir or Anthony or Lupita if you all wanna continue to share.
I would just the only thing that I will add is the way how the high school is a high school diploma. You don't get a GED. It's a partnership with Youth Build Charter. Youth Build Charter is a national district that they allow other people that have either starting their own nonprofit or people, right, that want to start their school with their own curriculum. So I would just add into that too, like, just looking into youth builds, and that's maybe like another step to creating like a different model from us to wherever you guys are at.
I'll say something quickly. Just thank you, Gloria and Lupita. You're both you speak so powerfully. And I know someone put in the chat also, and I have a student in here with me that can also speak to this, but in terms of sort of reimagining what safety looks like, what is so special about Free LA to me is I feel like it's sort of like almost just normalized now that cops or even security guards, like armed security guards, exist in schools, and that's what safety means. But I've heard if people know Miriam Kaba, she talks about the difference between like security and safety, and there's no cops here, but there's also it's one of the I feel one of the safest spaces around here, because there's the work done beforehand and when conflict happens to build community and address like the root of the problem, whether that problem be a fight or a disagreement. And so that community and that accountability to the space is built beforehand. So like that's a real sense of safety. And the school is just really a testament to the fact that it's quite possible to have spaces without police and without punishment or fear of punishment that are really so much safer than spaces that do have, more security measures. So Andy, I don't know if you want to share how you feel about the peace builders. Whatever you want to say.
Well, the peace builders right here at school, Free LA, they're peace builders. They're not known for being security officers armed. They basically they're here to help you get to your classes, tell you when your classes start, stuff like that. But they're never engaging in a physical force or aggressive. They're always showing love, trying to help out the community. And that's about it. That they're not armed, and they don't use those armed forces to stop violence, stuff like that.
Yeah, and then so my role as like the Freedom Arts coordinator is like I started the work probably like in 2017, 2016, like around that time. And when I started, like we had the graffiti and we had like a gang of like dope art in the space. And I just saw, like I had an eye and an ear for it. And like a lot of the students, a lot of the Free LA students at the time, they were so talented. Like they used to be able to could freestyle, write songs, like do the whole situation just like that, right? So I was like, if we're gonna be moving and we're gonna be getting this new building, let's find a way to transform, because where we're at right now, where Free LA is at, it used to be a juvenile court. So it used to sentence youths at a very high rate, and like it was one of the top rates in the entire world at one point. And we were like, I was like, yo, it would be dope to transform this space into somewhere that holds art, somewhere that holds authenticity, radicalness. And since we moved, we've like took over the space. There's graffiti all over, like painted. We have like 2 or 3 recording studios, we got a beat lab of recording studios, and then we have arts organization like IPR Arts and different stuff like that. And for the arts, we've partnered with the High School for Recording Arts. So like I'm gonna pass that over to Scott, because I know he does more the day-to-day in the studio kind of stuff.
Yeah, what I do with the music program is build with the core content teachers, and then come up with creative assignments that the students can do in the studio using the recorded arts. So for example, if you're in history class and you take your lesson that you learned from your history teacher that day, bring it to the studio, and I'll help you write a song about it. And then from there, you can get history credit from writing a rap song. Also, we're working towards doing more content revolving around transformative justice, and just doing that, as well as vocational training in the audio engineering field, to where students are kind of building their resumes to go on and be part of the music industry after they graduate Free LA, or even while they're still a student here. They can be getting gigs and be getting paid work doing audio work, like myself. So that's pretty much what I do here. Thank you.
We're getting some really great questions in the chat, which we can share, but also people are free to ask them out loud too. So feel free to, if you unmute, or if it's easier to raise your hand, and then we'll see you. I know there are a lot of people on the call, but our guests have been so kind to join us, and I think they really are open to responding to some of these questions. Is there anyone that wants to ask their questions, or else I'm glad to help from the chat. Yeah, thanks.
Chat, which a lot of people are responding to, so I can just ask it here to the group. Just a really practical question. How do students get referred to the free school, and how does it interact with the juvenile justice system? Are they court ordered? If they're coming out of lockup, is it voluntary? Do the probation officers offer it as an option? Can parents enroll their kids there as a preventative measure? So how do young people get into the school? That's my question.
Yeah, so I have a wonderful outreach coordinator. No, well, we get young people. A lot of young people are from word of mouth, right? Either their cousin went there, their friend went there. I went there because my friend went there. And then we also do court outreach, right? We have a partnership. We have partnerships with some public defenders because of the work that we do, and some public defenders are part of some meetings. So that helps out too. But also just, when we do sometimes, it's a process. When we have a young person and we do participatory defense and we show up to court, we also make our connections there at the courthouse and leave flyers there. And then we also have students that have probation officers that we also, we grow relationships with the probation officers, and the probation officers bring their young people actually there if they don't have a school. We've also had partnered up with the local high school, Diego Rivera. So, when their students are falling behind, they send them to Chucos as to catch up to their credits, and the students get to decide if they want to go back to a regular high school, if they want to stay there. Yeah, if anybody else thinks of anything else.
I'm interested to know more about the peace builders. Are they community members? Are they, peers themselves? Who are actually the community builders?
And before you all answer that, I wanted to piggyback, because this is one of the same questions, Sarah, which is many of us will hear your description of the peace builders and kind of assume that they are traditional mentors. And I don't know if that's an accurate assumption. So what's the difference between a mentorship program and what the peace builders do?
Yeah, I can start. But peace builder. So I think it depends, right? Like how you're viewing mentorship and also how you're thinking about the people that are system impacted or formerly incarcerated that are re-entering society, right? Or are coming back into community. So some of the, we have this connection or partnership with the county where we'll hire someone that's currently on cash aid or food stamps and they'll do an internship for 1 year, right? And so some people start off and we're like, hey, this person would actually be great at being a peace builder. They're, you know, from South Central, Inglewood, Watts, Compton, or in the area, or they're from the projects, right? Or they're really like in the on the ground. So we're, you know, then from there it's kind of figuring out, is this a good fit? But really some people don't even know that they're peace builders, right? But we'll see that, and different people will see it, right? People will just have that response of support and mentoring without knowing that that's mentoring, right? And we don't have like a handbook that's like, this is how you get to be a peace builder, but we do have a training, and we have trainings where we could train anyone really to go through the process of becoming a peace builder. But I don't think it's that traditional lens of, you know, these people are sometimes college educated or just coming out of college or have degrees in psychology or all these traditional norms. We're not following that. What we're really trying to say is like, you know, anyone can be a peace builder, right? We will need peace builders in the community, in the neighborhood to hold things down if we're thinking about abolition long term, right? So really growing people's skills, and then it's like, cool, you're doing mentoring on a whole nother level, right? Like we've had this amazing, incredible peace builder. Her name is Carletta Jackson. We have a mural of her in the space. She was from Watts, born and raised in the projects near Watts, which is the Nickerson Garden projects. And she was like a mom to every single young person. You know, we have young people that are homeless, that don't have parents, right? Like so many real needs. And so her as a peace builder, when she came there, she didn't start off as a peace builder, right? But she really cared about all of the young people. And so building her capacity and her skills and her leadership and hiring her on as a staff person and paying her a livable wage was like, cool, I could do these things now, right? So, you know, she passed away, she had a heart attack, she was battling different things, again, like real issues of a Black woman, right? That we need to fix so many crises that are going on in the county when it comes to housing, food, right? Mental health, all these things, so that folks can be sustained, but can also thrive and survive. And so unfortunately, she passed away, and that was a huge loss, right? But while she was with us, you know, she, again, I mean, if you have a mom that loves you and is like, you got this, right? And is always cheering you on, hyping you up, and, you know, listening to music together, right? Like all these things, right? Getting creative around how to offer support and offer love and offer accountability in ways that aren't like, let me refer you to probation. Let me cite you, right? All these things that make long-term effects, not just on the young person in the space, but also on the peace builders themselves.
Wow, thank you. Related to that, there's a question in the chat, and then we'll go. I know we also have a hand raised, but Miracle asked, for the students specifically, what about the school makes you feel safe?
We'll have a student answer. The question is, what about the school makes you feel safe? Do you feel like, if you feel safe here, what about the school makes you feel safe?
Okay, first I'm gonna introduce myself. My name is Beautiful Buchanan, and I am a student here at Free LA. Something about the space that makes me feel safe is, I would say, the teachers, the staff members, the peace builders, and just the environment by itself just makes me feel safe.
Do the circles help you? So one of the things also that um, happens here is that when there's conflict, there's transformative justice circles after. I mean, transformative justice happens before. It's a sort of like a grounding, I think, like ideology of the space, where it's like if we build relationships and community accountability, then that prevents harm rather than only ever needing to respond to it. But if there is a conflict or a disagreement, there's circles, usually multiple circles held after, where there's a process of, it's not like there's not the victim perpetrator sort of binary. It's harm happened, and there's multiple conversations after, to make sure that both people are supported and that there's a way to get to the root, like structurally and interpersonally, of what happened on both people's ends, and then being able to heal that, rather than punishment or fear of punishment being the only thing that's like, a deterrent. Did you want to share that? Very good. What about the school makes you feel safe?
I already said something like that.
Okay. Andy plus one's on his the peace builders and not having guns or armed security in the space is like a big element of the safety here.
While we're at it, there's another question for the students, and then I promise we'll get to that raised hand. But so what are you learning at the school, and how is that different than what you learned at other schools?
We're brainstorming. We're thinking.
I would say the Circle Street University is different.
Oh, okay. Do you want?
I would say what makes the school unique is our circles we have on Fridays called Street University, teaches about laws, stuff like that. And basically Street University teaches you the right laws to know about and stuff we don't know about that we can use in the streets to be safe and always cautious. Thank you.
I get confused by this because I can't see where. Oh, there. Okay. I don't know if Gloria and Lupita also were students here, so I don't know if they want to. Only if they want to. Or
yeah, hello, this is Lupita. I think when I was going to school there, what I was learning about is people like me. Like people, what do I mean about that? Like I was learning about brown and black people that made history, that look just like me. I was reading books that related to me. Like I that's when I grew my interest into books. I would say the first book that I read coming into Chucos is The Coldest Winter Ever. And I'm so shook that we're talking about that we're reading this and it's going on at school. And then the second book was the Mama Black Widow. So those books are just interesting, and what happens in our community and being able to have those conversations at school. When I came here, when I came within Free LA, I was just missing like one whole school year, so I really wasn't there for a long time. So I didn't really have classes a lot like that. But I would say, as well with Andy, like the Street University, that's what caught my eye. Like what? Like I was so surprised. I'm out of school that is talking about fuck the police, that is talking about defunding the police, that is teaching me how I should prepare myself to go to court, or how I should prepare myself to know my rights out here in the streets. And I have rights when I get pulled over by law enforcement, and to be known and to be told and knowledgeable about those rights. I was just shook and surprised. And then I would also just add into like the women's circles, right? I was just in love with the space where I can talk to other females. I'm like one of those females that I just be like, I just can't get along with girls. I don't have many girlfriends. But to have a space where we're able to communicate and we learn and teach each other, right? Because something that I have a question, the next person might have had the question, but she's too embarrassed to say it. But so I'm gonna ask it, and we're both learning off of each other. Like, wow, I didn't know you went through that. So our relationship just grew a little bit stronger out of me just going to school and just showing up and seeing this girl that come to my school. It was that versus now it's like, oh, like I see you. You're a young woman, just like I'm a young woman. Good morning. I hope you had a nice day today. So yeah, I think, and thank you.
Thank you so much. So I know we have a couple of hands raised. Maybe I see Sarah Nevels, and then I also see Nona Taylor. And if I'm missing people, please let me know. But Pablo was and Sir. Oh, sorry. No. Okay. Sir Bailey is first. So Sarah Nevels, Sir Bailey, and then Nona Taylor. That's the order. You all are at the top of the screen.
So first, two quick comments. One, I'm ready to move to LA, and not because it's warmer, but because this just sounds like incredible work. Second, I am absolutely in love with Beautiful's name, Beautiful Buchanan. I just think that's an amazing name. But my question is, what was the initial buy-in like when it came to probation, corrections, judges, and the juvenile justice system? What was that original buy-in like?
I would say like, well, if you look up the Youth Justice Coalition, we're not a watered down organization, right? We don't believe necessarily in hierarchical structures, really about committing to young people's leadership, and specifically Black and Brown young people, specifically marginalized, oppressed systems impacted formerly incarcerated young people. And so when I say that, that means we're at the board of supervisors, at county meetings, at state meetings, on people's necks, right? Like, we're really about making sure that young people and their leadership is viewed not through a tokenized lens, but really through an empowered lens, and really about supporting young people in the struggle so that they can figure it out, right? Or we can figure it out together. What that means is that these things are not easy, right? That we might not always have those best relationships, right? But what does work is that we're not gonna give up and we're persistent. What does work is that we're organizing Monday through Sunday and we're not giving in, that we have our demands, our campaigns for over now 20 years, right? We're consistently in LA, we've been thorough about young people, thorough about showing folks what it looks like to fund youth, right? And not fund incarceration. So through these different legislative, right, at the statewide, county level, city level, right, through connections with board of supervisors, with the people on the ground, right? Like, honestly, the base on the ground and the base inside lockups, that's really where we've been able to be ourselves however we want to be, right? And not let barriers and how norms operate derail us from where we're trying to go, right? So if we do court support, right, or we're supporting young people through participatory defense, like Lupita named, you're gonna see us at the court no matter what, because we're gonna show up for that young person. So either you're gonna talk to me and we're gonna work together because I'm trying to work with you, or we're gonna be neck to neck consistently, because best believe I'm gonna be there every single week if I have to be, right? So it's like that consistency that really has supported in folks like buying into a lot of these things, right? And the way that we've been able to create this space for other folks to also come in and say, like, no, these are the young people that are going to be heard, specifically in LA, is so beautiful. But that's really what's created those relationships and having young people in different spaces, right? Like J-Boy, you see him here, sits on a commission where they're overseeing what it's going to look like to fund Measure J in LA County, and looking at a lot of $1 million, right, that are going to go to services, right? You have Anthony that's a consultant for the Youth Justice Reimagined work group that's looking at, again, what I named earlier, moving young people out of probation's jurisdiction and into the Department of Youth Development. So really, like, what you see growing out of YJC2 is folks that are really becoming key leaders in the youth justice game in LA.
Wow, thank you. That's incredible. I'm going to go to Sir Bailey next.
Thank you, Sarah. I do appreciate it. I like to defer to Ms. Taylor, ladies first. And I just wanted to respond to the question about safety. What makes me as a teacher feel safe as an educator, but also what I'm learning as an educator. But after Ms. Taylor, thank you.
I'm sorry, it took me a second to get unmuted. I wanted to know, how is conflict handled if it arises in that setting? How is it handled?
Awesome. So there are 3 different type of justice, right? We have street justice, which is the toughest person wins, whoever wins the battle. We have court justice. You know, we don't really have no say so. The superior, whoever's oversees at that courthouse has the last word and has justice to whatever they think justice is. And then there's transformative justice. It's something that YJC and Free LA, actually Free LA is pretty big on, right? We have a social emotional counselor on site Monday to Friday. So people have these TJ circles, and what happens at these TJ circles, an example, when I was a student there, I had a conflict with some girl. I was just having a rough day. I didn't even see it like that, but I had a conflict with her. It wasn't too bad, where it was decent enough for me and her to just be separated, to be calmed down for a little bit. Miss Stacy talked to me. She got my side of the story. She talked to the other young lady. She got her side of the story. Then she got to us. She's like, are you guys okay to meet in person? Or would you guys have to wait until tomorrow or next week? But you guys can't attend class until you get this TJ circle out of the way. So we're ready for the circle. Like, let's get this going. Coming out of the circle, I realized that I was already having a bad day. It wasn't her fault. I apologized to her. I let her know I did not mean to harm her. I didn't mean any type of way. But I've known, like, the one thing that I know about TJ is not only that you go in there to just listen and what's going to be next steps, but you also have to comprehend, because as she's telling me her side of the story, I have to repeat back what I understood from her side of the story, as the same way as she has to repeat what she heard from my side of the story. And we both came to the agreement, like, hey, we're two heifers, and can't nobody gonna run me over it. And I didn't like your tone, and you didn't like my tone, so that's what it was. And I apologize because I started it, so I apologize. We weren't best friends, but we did acknowledge each other and just kept the cool distance ever since then. We also do TJ trainings. I would just say what I would add into TJ is that, you know, it's a timeless process. Like, there is no timing TJ. A circle could last an hour, 2, 3. Sometimes people are not ready for TJ, right? People are not ready to have conversations, because that's how I was at first. Like, I don't care, and I don't care. Like, are you gonna send me home? Then send me home. And what really broke me down was that Miss Stacy said, it's okay, I have all day. And that broke me down, for somebody to tell me they have all day for me to throw this fit, but she has all day for me. And I just broke down crying. I never realized that nobody has ever told me that. It was like, all right, whatever, you don't care, then bye. So yeah, I don't know if nobody, okay.
And the reason that's so big, thank you, Lupita, right? I'm sure, see the hearts, you have to feel that, because the reason that's so big is because that's what we're always driving, spending our time and wills for money, right? We have before this class, our economics class. Language is very important. It's our class, it's not my class, right? our learning experience in economics. Yeah, Lupita, you're awesome, right? For me, that safety comes in the irony of our concrete locks. You know, when I think about, or you know, Florencia on this block, as you walk out the door, they regularly tag Florencia, and this is a huge, you know, gang. And around the corner, my brother's like, it's East Coast over here. There's a lot of different gangs. There's a lot of violence all around, but we're inside of a detention center. I know that's odd, right? It's concrete blocks. I often find myself when the silence of the jail cells or in the courtrooms, I'm like, yeah, it's almost sad, but at the same time, we bring in art, we bring in our life, our spirit to change that look. But it is a commitment. It is that lock-in commitment that like Lupita's talking about, that the people here, peacekeepers, staff, and most importantly, the students that are coming in and transitioning, saying, we will commit to this process because it takes time. Right, when people are talking about what we're learning, they're intertwined, right? Because you may feel safe not really engaging in the work, but just being here. And so credits may not be being achieved, but credit is being earned in terms of that economy of time. We're getting credit with one another. We're paying one another forward, and like, you can spend time with me, but I'm not getting credit, and you know, all these, you know, and you're okay with that, you know. We're for us being together. So I want to say that commitment to peace, the time that it takes to really understand one another, that we're not just talking because of our position, but we really want to understand. And if it takes silence because I've said enough and we need to wait for the response, then even that's fine too. The sitting together, holding that space. If I may, I just wanted to. You want to go ahead, Lupita?
Oh, I would just add that it's vice versa, right? Just as students have conflicts and have TJ circles, students can also have conflict with teachers and host TJ circles for whatever that is, right? If they think that they should be passing, or if they don't like the tone of the teacher, right? The transparency it goes both ways. The community is built amongst both of us. We try to have like, you know, these we try to have like lunch together, right? Like, what does that look like? That looks like from us getting a taco person and having a taco person show up and us breaking bread together, us having a potluck amongst us staff and eating together with the young people, or us catering somebody, right? We try to at least have these potlucks like before the holiday breaks, if it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, or Valentine's, whatever it is. We just like to build community amongst each other, and we just try to do that generally throughout the whole entire school year.
And I promise I'm going to go faster now. I just wanted to share a couple of things, 6 minutes, if you may. The peace point that appeals to me in the space is right here. Oh shoot, did I just make it leave the screen? I did. Sorry about that. One more time. It's called Cat 911, and it is a separate nonprofit that developed out of YJC. When I speak about time, right? There was no principal. None of the students said, "Sir, you're new into the community, one of the new teachers here. You should go to the Cat 911 meetings that would happen after school, like maybe 6, not just right after school, but like 3 to 4 hours after school." And I live miles away. So that meant me staying around the campus and coming, but it allowed me to create relationships because there's a Cat 911 in Van Nuys where I live, which are miles away. So I could work with just San Fernando Valley when I get home. There's Cat 911 in Long Beach. There's Cat 911, obviously from here, but the community alternatives to the community actions teams, the alternatives, right? And so being intrigued like a student, feeling like a student, learning and feeling excited, then I'm able to, as an educator, even if no students get involved with me, I'm able to go and keep that fire burning in me, you know, to hopefully inspire the young people to invest time and energy into, and as you can see in the slide, the workshops were amazing. We had a former member of the team that's no longer with us would host these Cat 911s where people learned about responding to opioid overdoses, everything you see here, so that individuals with license to operate that have been incarcerated, that are OGs in the community, had more than just that license to operate, more than just that reputation. They actually had some training that came through. So we feel safe with the transformative justice circles because individuals have learned these techniques. The learning that is associated, the learning that goes right along with it. Youth Build, Charter Schools of California, and we appreciate what's called authentic performance tasks or community action projects. And so again, for economics, our discussion was on the real meeting that will happen in a few hours at 4 o'clock with the state, and so one of the organizations, again, that grew out of YJC, Los Angeles Youth Uprising, their adults that are calling from Oregon will come in and host this meeting and prepare us with the talking points of what's going on with the budget. So then it becomes the class time is our social time, and there's no like really hard break separation between us staying safe and what we're learning. We're learning how to keep ourselves safe. We're learning how to make the community safe. We're learning how to be better stewards of the environment with world history and sustainable development goals. We're learning how the sound of music impacts the cells of our body, and then we can share that out as an authentic performance task. So I love the fact that it's all synergized, that it all comes together as one. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you, sir.
I would, and before we're done, I can share one of the projects that Scott did is incredible. That kind of ties all what we did together, students and all. Is yeah, if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I'm seeing Margaret's hand and then Dustin.
Yeah, I just wanted to say quickly, in response to the things that have been said, and also there was a comment in the chat that someone said as a social worker, they never have all day to address student conflict. They are pressured to get issues fixed and keep moving, and all these sort of like bureaucratic or conventional like metrics of success, attendance and all that get in the way. And then someone else said, this makes me think that it's not so much that young people need to change, rather the education and the juvenile justice systems need to change. And I do think that something that like really is kind of like ever present in the space and certainly informs my understanding as a teacher. And it seems like others, or my approach as a teacher and others too, is an understanding of like the complicity of institutions and systems, including institutions that we're in like schools, in creating obstacles that are, you know, if you are well resources and live on, you know, multiple dimensions of privilege, like maybe you can overcome them, but really the expectations that if we're just talking about schools place on students are really honestly counter to their mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And same thing with the teachers and people within those spaces that are trying to you know, do their job. And so like I would also you know, it's not a concrete answer, but I think it does require like change at institutional and system levels, like was mentioned in the chat, and that, you know, it's possible to organize with it. Like, you know, I feel like Free LA is sort of like a space that escaped from like institutional settings, but of course that's not saying like, oh, you know, nothing can be done within the institutional settings, and you can organize within schools. And also, you know, I don't know if this is like professional advice, but you can, as you know, as someone working within a space, you can make the decisions about which rules you can give up and what you can do to, you know, make health and wellness and youth support a priority. And then last thing I'll say is like, there's like, you know, I'm not the first person to say this, but the pandemic exposed like a lot of things that teachers were told like are not possible for so many years, and then all of a sudden it's just possible. So like, I guess I encourage people to like push the spaces that you're in with like, you know, imagine beyond what they've said is possible, and you know, the resources are there. It's sometimes it's a matter of people like being willing to imagine something else.
Thank you, Margaret. I think those are really wise words for us to think about here, to imagine beyond what we think is possible. Dustin, your hand was up. Do you still have a question?
Yeah, this is Dustin. I think Margaret just like kind of I appreciate all of what y'all have shared. And yeah, out of fear of redundancy, you don't have to respond if you think you already answered it. But like thinking about like the even like the circle process or like anything around TJ, can you explain like some of the conditions that you deem to be necessary that y'all have created in order for that to even work? Because like one of the things that happens in Pittsburgh and everywhere is like they just put RJ, you know, purported RJ processes in the school, and it's like it doesn't actually do anything. So yeah, can you talk about like the conditions that y'all have created? Like what do you view as like necessary components, and how are they like working together to allow for TJ to happen, I guess?
Thank you for that question, Brother Gibson. I feel it's challenged out here as well. The RJ, TJ, how they rub against one another, because oftentimes the restorative stuff is like restoring some of the trauma. And so it like really became powerful as different groups, particularly I heard Ms. Stacy talking about it often, like, you know, a lot of things, some things need to be transformed, right? And then some things in terms of the restorative, I feel like this space is always thinking about cultural practices that lead to our oneness. And so those things, the meeting, there's elders, there's folks that you can feel in their conversations are leading it to look inside yourself, look into our communities, look in our parents, is there. And then there's conversations that happen that go, you know what, we keep looking into ourselves, looking into our parents, but we keep finding this same trauma, this same hurt. Maybe what we're talking here is transformation. And having open ears to brand new ideas, imagination and fantasy and technology. What could it look like that we've never, ever seen before? Transform. Thanks.
Thank you. Gloria, or I don't know if that's Gloria or Lupita on that, but with the hand.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, really quickly on your question. I think the main key thing is that when we think through transformative justice, it does not involve the carceral state whatsoever, right? You cannot think about other forms that are not punitive if you're thinking through working hand in hand with law enforcement. So if restorative justice is existing in schools where accountability is not, like RJ is used as like one form, but really, right, you have like people that can be kicked out of school, right, or pushed out, and then you have police officers in the school, right, like all of these things, then RJ won't work, right? Like it won't be taken as serious because it doesn't have the teeth that it needs to fight back and to support the young people. But when we do transformative justice in our space, right, it's with the intention is that we do not kick you out, that we do not push you out, and that we don't expel you, regardless of what it is. It could be something really serious, right? It could be something very minimal, but we're gonna really stick to our transformative justice practices and say, like, we're not gonna kick you out. You can always come back. If you decide to come back, because you always have a choice, you will have to go through a transformative justice circle, period. Right? And then through that space, we're going to figure out agreements that are going to support you as well as they're going to support the school. So then it's not just about the school sustainability, it's more so about your sustainability as well. But the importance of having choice and consistently using that method. We do not call the police, right? At the center, we don't allow law enforcement at all. So if there is someone that's trying to come in, we won't allow them, right? The only person that will come in with a badge is a probation officer, and that's to meet with the young people. And if the young person needs support to have this conversation, then they could call one of the peace builders at the space too.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing. That was so beautifully spoken, so I'll be short, but just like Gloria was saying, when you don't have, like, I've also seen some things where it's like, the policy goal is to like only use suspension as a last resort or only use calling the cops as a last resort. Like if it's still on the spectrum of like possible answers, it's going to end that it's still a possibility and it's going to end up there. And then everything else is sort of done in relation to that. But when you take that off the table as a possible answer, it forces you to be more creative and really think about the type of things. It'll be particular to place, I imagine, but the type of things that create a culture where no one is disposable and where each person, like another thing I think with transformative justice is like each person is accountable to holding, keeping the space safe. So when something happens, it's not two people that did it. It's like, what are the, as an example, if there was, a student was saying something sexist or racist to another student, and that's the root of that particular incident, what are the conditions that everybody's complicit in creating that made that okay? So it's more challenging. It's much harder than just punishing people. So I could go on, but I'll just add that.
Thank you. I see a question from Tashira. She asks, the carceral state has many tentacles. Do you all make a distinction between probation, police, and DAs when determining who is allowed in the building?
No one is allowed in the space except for the PO again, and that's because they have a direct case with the young person, but they might also be becoming aggressive, trying to violate the student, right? And so when that happens, we'll have a peace builder mediate that conversation. But other than that, right, there is no LAPD, Sheriff's Department, any law enforcement, any DA, and any like person that's a police officer would enter the building under any circumstances. And it's interesting because the county knows this and we still have a county contract with them and we still have that building.
Other questions? Liz.
Hi, just a quick introduction. I am a psychology and criminal justice student at Chatham University in Pittsburgh, PA. I was invited by Mr. Jeff Williams, who works for the Foundation of Hope here in Pittsburgh. And I am particularly interested in juvenile justice and have a lot of feelings about the fact that we have kind of taken Schumann off the table and now our young people have nowhere to go. My question here, I guess, is that somebody actually mentioned in the chat, I'd like the idea of taking law enforcement off the table. It necessitates creative thinking. I completely agree with that. I come from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which is a very, very poor and predominantly Black and brown area, and also somehow a very racist area. And our schools are really poor. And the first thing that they do when kind of violence uprises is they immediately look to the police. They bring in more police with more guns, more tasers, things like that, more security measures. I guess my question is, I really like that you guys have managed to kind of, again, take law enforcement off the table. Do you think that makes the students feel safer and more secure than if law enforcement were brought in to handle these situations?
Do you feel safer because there's no cops here?
Yeah, I feel way safe. Like I said, sometimes cops be just messing with you, be saying little slick stuff here and there. You know how they be.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it feels way safer to me without the cops, because a lot of times, like at least for me, like when I get pulled over, when cops pull up on me, or even when I was going to high school, a traditional high school, I had law enforcement, and something would happen that involved law enforcement, I would get agitated, I would get nervous, I would like got ADHD, all of that, right? When we see Dave and we see Charles, and we see the peace builders coming, like we don't look at them like nobody that will get agitated about, like when a law enforcement officer comes, automatically nobody else on that school campus is allowed to bring a gun other than a law enforcement officer. So if anybody has the highest risk of killing anyone, it is the law enforcement officer, because they have the only guns that are allowed on the campus, right? So things like that, like we don't really like agitating the situation, so we don't try to allow law enforcement officers to bring their guns and or come here and stuff like that,
Yeah, the relationship that peacekeepers have with the community is paramount. This morning, I got a phone call from another community service provider regarding a young person that graduated from here that was having some trouble at home, and asked, and knowing that we are still in a working relationship, internship sort of thing, called and said, in that loving, caring situation, is Chuco says, what can we do? Not feeling safe at home, not feeling safe where the current workspace, can he come back there? And so I already knew that our peacekeepers would be open with it, but just going to check, I was like, of course, a safe space to decompress, to, be able to talk it out, where our normal outlets might be, over inundated, or, just, yeah, it may not be the space. And I think that's like a super role that the peacekeepers hold, in that they're committed to, it's not like an absence. And I appreciate you guys recognize it's not an absence of conflict, it's definitely not that. It is a commitment to calm, a trust in the process. Like, okay, we've seen it a lot of times, and it may not happen in that hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours. I've seen, and we're in the midst of transformative restorative justice circles that began some months ago and need to be rescheduled, and have been rescheduled, and they'll come up. And so there's time and space between that you have to trust that is going to work out.
Sorry, I was just following up in the chat, but thank you, everybody. I really appreciated those answers and hearing all of your points of view. So thank you.
Tammy.
Thank you guys so much for your presentation. It was amazing. I love to hear about such positivity with kids. I'm sure we're all loving it. I have a couple of really basic nuts and bolts questions that I think you started off with at the beginning, and I just want to make sure I understood them correctly. It sounds like you guys function a bit like a charter school, meaning there's, I'm thinking about course credit, state standards. Who is it that's saying that the classes count? So I'm wondering about that piece of it. It sounds like there's another school connected to you said a national district or something like that, that determines what counts as class. And earlier I heard you say that about referrals to the system. It sounds like you can be both volunteers and sent there. So I'm just wondering about that, stuff like that. Is it required for teachers to be certified? At what point does the state infringe at all on this system? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, maybe I can start and then pass it to Margaret and Sir or others that might want to go. But so we are an accredited continuation school through a charter school that's called Youth Build Charter Schools. And so through this charter school, we're funded, and yes, the teachers need to be accredited in order to be teachers. but they let the schools really dictate like how they how they operate their program, the courses that they offer, the classes, all those things. The school gets to decide that. And again, like it is accredited, and the high school, I think one of the things that we could really, we've been trying to figure out how to add this, but have the young people go through A through G requirements and not just the two, I think it's like 210 or 200 credits to graduate. Because yes, they could get a high school diploma that's an accredited diploma, but they have to go through they have to go through community college if they wanted to pursue higher education. And then we can get referrals. So because probation works with different CBOs, or what they do is, right, like once a young person is put on probation, then they have to refer the young person to a service. And so we can be that referral school, but that doesn't necessarily happen all of the time. But a lot of the young people that are coming to the school, they themselves already have a case and are on probation. But that's not because they were, that's not because of the school. They just, young people just happen to be on probation, right? Another thing I'll flag too is that what we really wanted to say, like, yo, y'all need to come here when the school was started, was like having this like bold statement around, like, if you've been pushed out of school, please come here, right? Like if you've been traumatized by the system, and you know someone in your family was killed by law enforcement, or someone you know or someone you love was incarcerated, right? Or you're in the foster care system, like please come here, please come to this school, right? Like we really want to support you in getting your high school diploma, but also getting connected to social justice, organizing, activism, right, however you want to call it, or these different components. And so that, I think that's why our population is the way our population is. But again, even if you know you just need a high school and you're like, hey, I actually hate my school and I want to but I found your school and I want to come. Like there's different methods in which young people are connecting to the school, but it's not a school that's necessarily relying on referrals in order to have students in the school actively. So that's not a specific, we don't have a contract. We don't have a specific bridge from them to us. It's more so of young people already being in these systems or catching cases and being in the school.
That's like amazingly helpful. So here's my question. Is that California specific, or did you all disentangle yourself from the state? And is there any advice on how other places could disentangle themselves from the state in such a way?
Yeah, when you say disentangle yourself from the state, is that not relying on referrals, or to what specific point are you referring to?
I'm really talking about things like curriculum, what course content, what counts as a class, what counts as a credit, people, that just like the sort of day-to-day, you have such freedom, and I'm trying to understand how that freedom, how you took that freedom. I can see what you've done with it, which is amazing. I'm just trying to think of the beginning of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think my guess is that that's really like shout out to youth-built charter schools, right, for allowing the schools to exist in this way, because there are also other schools that are super amazing, that are connected or accredited through youth-built charter schools. So it's really this specific charter school district that is allowing the schools to exist in this way. If they exist in other parts of the country, I'm not too sure of, but I could get that information to you all, or I don't know if Margaret or Sir or any of the students have that information.
I'm definitely down to do some research in terms of, hey, oh, we'll have class soon, and have to hop off, but I'm down to facilitate like exploring. I can put my email in chat. I'm down to facilitate exploring those sorts of options that exist in other places. And yeah, I think that like they are there, and I know that things work differently in Pittsburgh, and things work differently in other parts of California outside of LA. And so the approach would be, like I said, particular to the place. But yeah, I would also say in terms of like the teaching, and then Sir could speak to this also, the freedom, like there's what I appreciate is the sort of things that are supposedly accountability, that are like sort of structural features of the traditional system, like standardized testing and all those things. It's actually like really antithetical to the learning process, and being able to have the freedom to create curriculum and support students individually without those, being like tethered to like teaching to the test is I think what makes the education so meaningful.
You, Margaret. And I am mindful. I know that you are going to teach now in 3 minutes, and I don't, I'll just let all our guests from LA know our meeting goes till 5. So if any of you can and want to stay on with us, that is wonderful. And we also want to be really respectful of your time and your generosity in coming here today. So I definitely want to thank Margaret before you leave, and thank the others as well. But if any of you are able to stay on, that's fantastic. And if you need a run, that's completely fine too.
Yep, I just
Yeah,
wanted
I'm
to
gonna hop
edify
off.
that youth bill for the question Tammy had. If you look into the history, 1970, when Dorothy Stoneman started the youth bill, it started with Habitat for Humanity, rehabbing the dilapidated homes, the crack houses in New York that, once the arrests were made and people left, it just became blights on the city. And young people said, let's make schools out of them. So definitely big up Youth Bill Charter School and that history of making project-based community service learning something that's pretty common now in our education systems. Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on your lunch hour in LA. We are so grateful. I know we will be in touch with some follow-up questions and more gratitude and thanks, but I think we all have a lot to think about now for sure. So thank you, thank you, thank you. There are many thanks in the chat.
Yeah, thank you. Like Gloria said, thank you, Gloria, Lupita, Sir, everyone, Anthony, and all the students also, if they're still on. Thank you so much. And thank y'all for being open to the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Sabina, for connecting us. And thank you, all of you, for joining us. And you're welcome back here anytime. Now you have the link and you know when we meet, but we will be following up, definitely. So we're really grateful.
Okay, thank you. I'll follow up with everyone too.
Thank you so much.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you. So we have those of you from Pittsburgh, if you want to stay on, I know we meet till 5, and I think we have a lot to think about and discuss, and maybe we just want to talk a little bit about what we heard. And yeah.
Can I ask a question, Sarah?
Yeah, please.
My edges are eviscerated. My wig blew off. We started this conversation. I had hair. Now the wig is gone. It has shifted. Just so completely blown away by everything that was shared today. And what was most powerful for me, Sarah, was the piece about peace builders and how we determine who and what are assets in our community. And so many of you know that I don't live in Pittsburgh. So as someone sitting outside of the city in Allegheny County, I'm wondering, how would you all kind of ascertain the readiness of Allegheny County to be able to take on that type of work? Because that takes a psychic shift, and being able to say, this is what mentorship and support truly looks like. And it has to come from within a community, one that for so long has been vilified and demonized quite often as a result of systemic oppression. So I guess that's what I'm thinking a lot about. And I would love to hear people's thoughts on that.
I would love to be ready. Me personally, I'm ready, but I'm not sure that Pittsburgh is ready, but I'm ready to make them ready.
I'm wondering about
to respond. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm wondering about the funding for Schumann and where that comes from, and where, you know, how will that money be reallocated? And maybe, you know, maybe there's an opening there to do something like they did in LA.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Kathleen. I think that's why we wanted to have this conversation at this moment, because we're hoping there is a opening and opportunity to at least imagine some other approaches. Other specific responses to that question? I don't know. I don't know if we have all the people on this meeting now who can completely answer that question, but we're going to work on those answers to understand some of that. But maybe some of you all do know. So I really want to open the space for additional thoughts on that and other questions and reactions and impressions.
I think it may be worth a follow-up. It was great hearing, you know, just what is happening now, the progress that has been made. But, you know, to see if there was any documentation on what was their implementation process, because at some time they were sitting in a room just like us having this conversation. And so what were some of the steps that were taken to get to this point that they're at right now?
I think that some of the difference may be that they had the youth justice, like their group of youth involved in things. I mean, didn't they say that that's been around for like 20 years? So having that really strong and kind of well-organized youth voice, and I don't know if all 20 years they were going to city council meetings and that kind of stuff. I mean, so I think one starter step is to find some way of really supporting that kind of youth engagement in a coalition rather than separate little groups of kids that may exist now.
Yeah.
What if
so I would say, and not even just to talk about Gwen's Girls or even what we're doing through BGEA, there are several groups across the county that have for a while been doing just that. And maybe one of the things that, and I don't know if she's still on here, but LaTrinda has, you know, we've been talking about is that collective impact and how do we make, you know, come all together, you know, and,
together,
yeah. Because is, you know, even the change that we have seen thus far, it may be incremental around like the suspensions and things like that, but it is those types of movements that I believe contribute to the long-term change that's necessary.
I mean, certainly the point about if the severe option, expulsion, suspension here, Schumann Center, if those things are removed, it's just forcing you to be more creative and to come up with other better solutions. So I think, you know, I think that that's something that is sometimes very, very hard for people who are knee deep in working in the system to admit to. they could survive without it.
And one of the things that you mentioned, Kathy, is, and I believe that they had to have a concept because, you know, Pittsburgh Public is not going to move away from the suspensions and all of that. So they created a system and an institution where they could define their own rules and regulations around, we're not going to expel kids. We're not going to do that. We're not going to have police. We're not going to do this. So they had a vehicle to do that. And many charter schools that are not just focused on just the charter schools that just got fed up with the public educational system, they have a very different model of what they do, but they still have some response to the districts that's funding them because they're being funded. This group went totally outside of the, in my mind, the traditional way of being funded. They went to a chartered school who sanctions schools all over. And so they had to have a frame of reference of what they wanted to achieve and goals that they wanted to do. And that's how they got to where they're at. I mean, it just seemed to me that that would be worth exploring. How did they get there? I mean,
Yeah,
what
that's
was
what
the plan?
Rosalie, that's what I was trying to,
yeah.
That's what I was trying to get to. And that's why this really isn't about Schumann at all. Schumann is about incarcerated kids. This is about a charter system that's outside of, it's funded external too. That's why I was trying to figure out how their state system worked, but you're exactly right. And obviously it's possible because we have a Philly example. So it is connected to Schumann, but it's also not connected to Schumann. It's connected to Schumann because Schumann represents kids who are, subject to unfair practices, but it's not really about Schumann or anything that down that way with funding or anything like that. That's not the same space.
No, I mean, I think the Schumann overlap is more, it's a similar thing that if you don't have it available, you're going to figure out something else instead as a parallel set of things.
Well, and I think it's about oh, go ahead, Justin.
I'm thinking like I feel like it's very connected to Schumann. I'm thinking like the campaigns that the free school came out of is like they're organizing and like it's not apolitical. Like even thinking about like the practices of TJ in the school, like they're using abolition, but not just like as a practice, like of a theory of change. So that's like really rooted in something that's very political. And their campaigns were around like conditions of confinement and reducing the budgetary decisions around incarceration and investing in like youth leadership. And the school is birthed out of that. And that feels like very much connected to Schumann because as much as it's about Schumann, it's also about ACJ and the entire carceral apparatus, which they're like literally fighting against. And I think how they organize themselves and like how the school comes to be is going to be completely different for Pittsburgh because the organizing tactics will have to be different. But I do want to, just push back a little and say like it's not apolitical. And I think it has everything to do with like whether it's Schumann or any of the youth prisons.
Yeah, thank you, Dustin. And that's in part what I was thinking as well, right? Part of it, it's a vision for thinking about, like the point we started with that I took from meeting with a couple of them the other day too, of right, we're building up institutions of support for young people. That's not to say we don't have any yet, but we're building up additional supports to make incarceration obsolete. And I think it's that vision. I agree with you, Dustin. I think it will look different how it could happen here than in any other location because it is context specific. But I think for today, part of what I was hoping to get, which I really saw, was just an understanding of that it's possible, right? That it is actually possible to have some other ways to support young people and some additional possibilities. So I'm so grateful for that start. And then for sure, we have a lot of work to do to figure out how we might do something like this here, what we would want it to look like, who would be involved, which we know, so, as Kathy always says, right, we need everyone at the table to work collectively. But Yeah, other thoughts and reactions and ideas and suggestions.
I just want to echo what you said, Sarah, that I think it's so important that we create this vision collectively and trust that if we believe in this vision collectively, then we can figure out the process to get there. I imagine that they went into this also starting with a vision and then found the charter route as a route that worked for them in their context and not the other way around. So just not getting too bogged down with their process won't work for us. But also just as a point of clarification, and this is worth looking into, is that even if they are functioning through a national charter management organization, they are most likely still getting funding through district-wide per pupil funding, because that's how charters usually function. So that's something worth asking them about. But it would be interesting in our next conversation with them to ask, at what point did you decide to do this through a charter, and what other avenues did you consider as we start to consider other avenues as well?
Sorry, if can I just add, like when it comes to district and charters, that it's not so much funding, it's a requirement. So it's more like it's funneled through the district. District has no choice. They're not making a decision on whether to grant money to them. They're entitled to that amount of money based on the students they have and which districts they come from. So it's not funding so much as it's just funneled through the districts. So they're not obligated to follow any of the district's rules or anything like that. They don't have any obligation in that way. It's just based on whatever the state laws are.
Yeah.
Got it. Other thoughts, reactions, ideas?
This is Miracle. Apologies, I'm off camera. One of the things I really liked about is the idea of allowing the teachers to do the transformative justice circle, and understanding that as practitioners or as the adults in the room, that we too are going to make mistakes and cause harm. And I think that as part of like this like envisioning is to make sure that we are also allowing ourselves to be called out or even called to the table, because we don't have all the answers. And I think that what was really also important was like the culturally competent piece of having the arts and the curriculum be responsive to what was going on in the community, and that being sometimes the first instance that the students saw themselves, and to think proactively of what that also looks like in creating curriculum that is just by definition a lot more inclusive. And one of the things I would also I know we didn't get to talk about, but if we have further conversations, link about like how disability justice plays into the role, because I forgot the student's name, but the first student that spoke, he also talked about them being able to help students who have ADHD, and I don't think they talked about it at like in follow-up conversations. So what that training also looks like, because he also talked, because he seemed to say that was one of the things that like he needed was that like external support. So like outside of an IEP, like what type of work that they are doing to be more responsive as an institution that allows kids like or students like him to feel that he has the opportunity to exceed and achieve in that space as opposed to other spaces.
Thanks, Miracle. And I know that's similar to a question that Christy put in the chat that we didn't quite get to, but yes, to be continued. Goddess hand is up.
Yeah, just kind of leading off of what Miracle was saying is I liked how they talked about how there aren't hierarchical systems. That I think some of the conflict that happens in classrooms is because of this power struggle, this ego that, you know, I am the teacher or I am the principal, and you are lower than I am and you owe me this respect, or you can't do this, or you can't talk to me that way, versus working in a more collaborative, compassionate way and really kind of understanding what the fundamental issue is, rather than getting so focused on this, the ego and the power. And I think that takes, stepping back, and as that teacher was saying, the words that you use, right? It's our classroom. It's what we're all learning together, versus I know everything, So I think it's just a shift in mind, the way that we think about things. And often when we talk to policymakers, it's, well, we've always done it this way. That's just the way it works, and so moving away from that, right? Like, yes, it takes huge shifts, but in the end, it pays off.
Right. And I think to your point, Gada, right? It's not that the respect is already there. It's building that mutual respect. Like, it's having those processes in place to develop the relationships and trust and respect, and then having processes to deal with when that's violated in some way or there's a harm. Yeah. Liz, your hand is up.
I just wanted to comment. I really, really appreciated when they began talking about the fact that they have almost these safe spaces for students. And I had put in the chat at the time, and I stand by what I said, is that we as adults are able to walk away when something's going on that we are not okay with. We're able to take the moment to go and, whether it's calm ourselves or, scream into a pillow in the bedroom, whatever it is, we are able to take that time to walk away. Yet, if you're a student in a high school or a middle school or an elementary school, that's not something that can happen. You don't have that moment to walk away, and you're often punished if you do walk away. And the fact that they recognize that these are children who aren't fully developed, yet we want them to behave better than most adults that I know in the work system behave. We're asking so much of them. And then on top of that, we're saying, well, you have to learn. And so I think there's kind of like this construct where we hold these children to higher standards than we hold adults, and then we expect them to do everything perfectly. The idea that they should be able to sit silently in a chair and only speak when they raise their hand, it's just, unfortunately, it's tired and old and outdated. And these are children who have personalities and they have issues. And many of these children are failed by things that we put in place. And if we can help protect them by offering them a safe space, a single safe space, somewhere where they can go or someone that they can talk to, I think that that's something that can change the youth of Pittsburgh and everywhere else.
Thanks, Beth. Go ahead.
Yeah, related to what Miracle said in particular, something that really resonated with me about their curriculum is that it was so relevant to what the kids are experiencing, and that they're learning about the history of movement makers in their own community, but they're also doing project-based learning, and they're being given opportunities to be movement makers themselves. And I think something that a lot of us in education tend to overlook is that, like, the idea of cultural relevance, the idea of doing culturally relevant practice, implied in that is giving kids an opportunity to develop critical consciousness and to advocate against systems of oppression. And it's not culturally relevant unless we're being honest with students about what they already know, that these systems exist out there, and giving them the tools to challenge themselves. And so it sounds like because the school is embedded or has a relationship with this advocacy organization, and I forget who it was, Gloria or Lupita is the liaison between the two, but I think the students are being constantly given opportunities and built up to have a voice in advocacy. And I think that seems really central to what they're doing and to what we should consider doing too.
Just to add on, I think that's so important. I think, kind of following up from both what Beth said and what I had said earlier, is children are often shut down in classrooms. They're told to be quiet. They're told not to share their opinions. And then when they grow into adults who either one are so angry that they lash out or are so, away from others and they can't really come out and be themselves, we wonder why. Well, for their entire grade school life, we've told them to sit down and be quiet. And allowing students to have an opinion, to have like a voice is so incredibly important to so many things. And it's so formative for their brains and their personalities. And I think it's so important that this idea that they're doing in LA really seems to give students a chance to say, hey, this is me, this is who I am, and this is what I believe in. It's important to learn these kinds of things and to know these kinds of things, especially if you're working with the youth.
Well, and to Shira's point in the chat, some young people are being taught that their voices are important in sort of fancy private schools in particular and some other spaces, right? So yeah, but many young people are not getting that message.
And to Beth's point, I got to see that I got to work with YJC. Maybe we started working 10, 11, 12, I don't know. I was trying to find some of the stuff on my computer as people were talking, but I was gonna make the point that Beth made. I think it's such an important point. Like, we got to not only see YJC engage young people in some of the advocacy work, but how it shifted the advocacy work to away from more of the adult-centered, at that point, litigator-centered sort of approach, to think about the community building and building around. And it was, I don't know, it was an incredibly valuable experience. And I think that's something to really reinforce with this model and how they do their work.
Hey, Sarah, this is Aaron Mickens. Many years ago, I went to Youth Build USA and saw all their operation and actually traveled. I actually ended up going to Philadelphia. I went to York. York had a Youth Build, and I went to, I think it was Cincinnati. So I've traveled some of those Youth Build programs, and actually I have a Youth Build curriculum that I'm still holding on to that has been, because I do believe in the model. The model, I think, is something that can easily work. And I think it's something that at some point needs to be probably, investigated a little bit more. The question is that is our region really ready for a Youth Build charter school kind of model? And I think it can be changed. It doesn't necessarily have to say Youth Build, but maybe it's a different model. Because I think it's something, and again, using that type of model might be, what's advantageous moving forward.
Thanks, Aaron. I know I'm thinking back to something Kathy said much earlier in the conversation, also just about there are a lot of organizations in Pittsburgh who that are working with young people, right? And including Gwen's Girls, but many other organizations too on some smaller scales in different ways. And I wonder about one of our future meetings, if it would be, I don't know, and I want to know what other people think, could it be productive to, and I know a lot of you are here now, but invite people, young people and adults from some of the, try to be inclusive in terms of all the organizations doing some of this work, to think about like, what would it look like to come together around some of these ideas here? I don't know. What do people think?
I think it's worth a conversation. I always refer to Kathy.
And she may have stepped away for a minute. And I know probably what everyone's thinking is it's almost 5 and we've been on Zoom a long time. So, Mary, were you going to say something? I saw you unmute, and then I think we'll probably wrap up, but we will be continuing. Did you want to say something, Mary?
Oh, I was just going to say that I agree with Erin. I think it would be good to convene something with young people and adults who are participating in youth organizations for an overview of these ideas. I think it'd be great.
Yeah. Well, let me just say thank you to everyone for being here. I think maybe we'll think about that as a next step. Feel free to reach out to Kathy or me or Kim or Beth or any of us that, you know, were involved in kind of facilitating today. If you want to, especially if you are excited to help us like figure out these next steps, you know, Kathy has the email list, so everyone will hear as we move forward. But if you're especially excited to be part of figuring out even what our next agenda should look like, please reach out to us. And yeah, so thank you for being here. I know we all probably have a lot that we're going to be thinking about after listening to and learning from all these amazing colleagues out in LA. Anyone else want to, Kathy, I want to turn it back over to you.
Listen, I don't have words right now. You know, I'm still absorbing and taking it all in. And as you said, like we need to think about potential next steps. And what are some of the other aspects that we need to explore?
And we need to book a trip.
Sarah, I'm about to get on. You talking about you ready to move to LA. Listen, we gonna do this here in Pittsburgh. You can't be leaving me.
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you everybody for your time and attention. Are there any other announcements? That's what I wanted to get to. There's a lot of people dropped off already. Any announcements?
Oh, I would say the registration is open for the National Juvenile Justice Conference that will be held in Pittsburgh, March 13th through 16th in person, come hell or high water, I think, hosted by the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. You can go to ncjfcj.org to find out more about it. I think they're supposed to release the program either tomorrow or next week.
And when you see it, you'll see, I guess it's right now me and Tashara, but we are gonna have a presentation. Sarah probably will be there. We haven't figured it all out yet, but you know, we are representing BGEA at the conference. So.
Excellent. Yeah, I was talking with the staff people that help organize it. And I would say too, if there's any organizations that are, you know, service providers that want to be exhibitors, they're certainly welcome to take on more folks.
Okay.
They make, you know, I guess it's like day and 3/4 of exhibiting time, and you get to attend all the workshop sessions and plenaries and stuff. The exhibits are really during the breaks.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we'll get that information and shoot that out to folks.
Thank you.
Kathy?
Mm-hmm.
Kathy, it's Mary Hall. I just wanted to say in terms of announcements that we're having a virtual session next Thursday at 7. It's going to last about an hour. It's a webinar on how to start a youth court. And we're really interested in letting people know about the youth court concept. So if I may, I'll send you a flyer about that and send one to Sarah also. If you have the opportunity to distribute that to our network, that would be great if people would like to join us.
Will do.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, everybody have a good evening. Thank you.
You too, thanks.